A to Z Mysteries, Book Number 13, The Missing Mummy, by Ron Roy. Chapter 7. Dink shaped a tail for his dinosaur. All I smelled was dust from the bomb. How could you smell French fries? Josh was making a row of teeth for his tyrannosaurs. Because I have an amazing sense of smell, he said. I'm afraid we've run out of time, Dr. Tweed said. You may take extra clay and finish your sculptures at home. He handed out cardboard boxes for carrying the clay dinosaurs. Thank you all for coming, Dr. Tweed said as everyone got up to go. Tomorrow is Wet Wednesday. I will be away, but one of my colleagues will be here in my place. Be sure to wear shorts and old sneakers and bring permission slips from your parents. A few minutes later, Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose stood in front of the museum, holding their boxes. What time does our bus come? Josh asked. They run every half hour, Ruth Rose said, glancing across the street at the bank clock. It's 3:30 now. We must have just missed one. Josh grinned. Good, we have time to get a snack. Dink rolled his eyes. Josh, my folks are still freaked about the bomb. I promised I'd get right home after the museum today. Let's just go wait in the shade. They walked around the little pond and sat on a bench. Immediately, the goldfish came up for handouts. Suddenly, Josh stood up and stuck his nose in the air. I smelled it again, he said. He swiveled his head, like a periscope looking for enemy ships. There, he said, pointing back along the park path toward Main Street. A small restaurant stood next to the bank. A sign in the window said, Aunt Frieda's Fabulous Fries. Forget your stomach, Josh, Dink said. The next bus will be here soon. Josh slumped back on the bench. I'm being falsely accused, he said. All I'm trying to do is figure out what happened to that gold. Okay, Dink said, so tell us. Okay, Josh said. I smelled the French fries last night. They sell French fries across the street, so maybe the robbers work there. Maybe that's where they took the gold. I saw those crooks dragging the gold, Dink said. There's no way they carried it all the way to that restaurant. Ruth Rose looked at Dink. Still, Josh might be right about the thieves working there, she said. Maybe we should go over and check it out. But our bus... Come on, Dinkus, Josh said, standing up. We'll catch the next one. Okay, but I still think it's just a trick, Dink said. You do anything for a plate of fries. The kids carried their boxes through the park, across Main Street, and into the restaurant. They sat in a booth by the window. Overhead, a ceiling fan hummed, and a jukebox played an Elvis song. 6 teenagers were just leaving. They left behind a small mountain of dirty dishes and glasses. A roly-poly woman came through a swinging door with 3 glasses of ice water. She had gray hair and wore a white apron over her dress. Welcome to Aunt Frieda's, she said. I'm Aunt Frieda. I'll bet you've been to the museum, right? How did you know? Asked Ruth Rose. The woman pointed to Ruth Rose's small box. Wadsworth Museum was printed on the side. We made dinosaurs out of clay, Josh said. Oh, that would be Dr. Tweed, Aunt Frieda said. He's one of my regular customers. So, what can I get you today? Fries and a lemonade, please, said Josh. You'll love my fries, Aunt Frieda said. The best in Hartford. I'll have the same, Ruth Rose said. Dink made it 3, and Aunt Frieda bustled away to the kitchen. Josh leaned forward and whispered, Maybe Aunt Frieda was one of the robbers. Dink grinned. She doesn't exactly look like a robber, he said. Plus, the crooks were taller and thinner, Ruth Rose said. Aunt Frieda returned with their fries, drinks, ketchup, and napkins. Let me know how you like my fries, she said. It's my secret recipe. The kids dug in, sharing the ketchup. A few minutes later, a woman with short dark hair came out of the kitchen. She was wearing an apron and carrying a large plastic tub. The woman walked over to the table with the dirty dishes and began cleaning up. Dink heard her grunt as she lugged the loaded dish container into the kitchen. What's the matter? Ruth Rose asked Dink, who was staring after the departing woman. Josh waved a French fry in front of Dink's face. Why the big eyes, Dink? That woman, he said. The way she was lugging that pile of dishes, she reminded me of one of the robbers last night. Hot diggity, Josh said. At last someone agrees with me. Ruth Rose turned and looked toward the kitchen. You know, she has short dark hair, just like the woman who came out of the restroom before I found the money. The three kids stared at the kitchen door. And she smells like French fries, Josh said. Chapter 8. Aunt Frieda walked over to their booth. My, you did a good job on those fries, she said. Anything else? No, Dink started to say. Yes, Ruth Rose interrupted. Could you show us how you make your fabulous fries? Donald here is really interested in cooking. I am? Thought Dink. Aunt Frieda beamed at Dink. Of course, dearie. Come on back to the kitchen, she said. Ruth Rose nudged Dink, and they all followed Aunt Frieda. On the other side of the swinging door, the smell of frying potatoes hung heavy in the air. A row of wall shelves held pots and pans, cooking spices, cookbooks, and a bunch of bottles and jars. Against one wall stood a pile of crates bulging with raw potatoes. The woman with short dark hair was standing at a counter slicing potatoes. She was wearing earphones and didn't seem to notice the kids. Dink stared at the woman. As she stooped over the pile of potatoes, Dink imagined her stooped over a case of Egyptian gold. Aunt Frieda interrupted his thoughts. Come over here, she said, leading the kids to a deep fry machine. She lowered her voice. Here's my secret. I put a little garlic and vinegar right in the olive oil, she said, then winked. Promise you won't tell? Dink nodded. Promise, he said. Boy, cooking potatoes is really interesting. From the corner of his eye, Dink saw Josh scoop something off the kitchen floor and shove it in his pocket. Then Ruth Rose poked Dink. She pointed her chin at a coat rack by the back door. A black jacket hung from one of the pegs. On the floor sat a black gym bag. Anything else you want to know? Aunt Frieda asked. No thanks, Ruth Rose said, smiling. We've seen everything we need. The kids left the kitchen, with Aunt Frieda following them. They paid for their food and started for the door. Suddenly, Aunt Frieda put her hand on Dink's arm. Wait, she said, digging into the pocket of her apron. Put out your hands. The kids obeyed, and she dropped a candy into each palm. Have a nice day, Aunt Frieda said, then opened the door for them. The kids popped the candies into their mouths as they hurried back to their bus stop. Did you see that jacket? Ruth Rose said. If that woman put it on over her apron, the white edge would show. Is that what you saw last night, Dink? It could be, Dink said. And that gym bag looked like the ones the robbers were carrying. Josh shook his head. You guys are such amateurs, he said. The jacket could belong to anyone, and there are a million black gym bags in Hartford. He reached into his pocket, but I found a real clue. He held out a smooth pebble the size of an M&M. What's that? Dink asked. Come on, I'll show you. Josh headed for the museum steps. Dink and Ruth Rose followed Josh through the lobby. In front of the tomb, they found a sign announcing that the mummy exhibit was closed. Behind the sign, the sliding door was shut. Josh walked over to the wall and pressed the stone. With a rumble, the wall slid open. Josh leaned inside and scooped a handful of the gravel off the floor. Then he closed the door again. See, they're the same, Josh said, holding up the gravel and the pebble he'd found at Aunt Freida's. I don't get it, Dink said. I found this pebble on the floor in Aunt Freida's kitchen, Josh explained. It matches the pebbles in the tomb. The only way it could have gotten from the tomb floor to Aunt Freida's floor was on the bottom of one of the crook's shoes. Okay, Ruth Rose said, but that still doesn't tell us where the gold is. Or who the second crook is, Dink added. Maybe not, Josh said, but something in that restaurant smells.